Hello, my name is Lorenzo Loboon and welcome to my genre, form, and style presentation. I have chosen a topic that's dear to my heart. It fascinates me, the Hollywood blockbuster tentpole movies. These movies today are significantly vital to the success of the modern day studio. These movies are called tentpole movies because they carry the entire studio. They earn enough revenue to be able to make other movies possible, as well as cover movies that are non-profitable or movies that are just stuck in the meal, so to speak. They lead the way. Sarah Miles, who is a columnist, Hollywood columnist, writes, "Tentpole movies hold up, balance out, and support the financial performance of a studio in a given year." Overview. This study will attempt to capture a brief history, evaluate and define Hollywood blockbusters, identify major marketing characteristics, identify some of the key people who have made this industry go, and evaluate some of the vital ingredients in the narrative structure. Let's start with the history. The first big project that can be considered a Hollywood blockbuster or a blockbuster movie is The Birth of a Nation, the 1915 Civil War propaganda movie, produced and directed by D.W. Griffith. My story, however, begins with the term blockbuster, which has military origins, first used to describe large-scale bombs during World War II. Shortly after the war, it began to take on use in cinematic terms. Media scholar Marco Cucco explains, the late 40s and early 50s brought Hollywood to a crucial point. Cuckoo describes it as worst crisis. This crisis was prompted by several factors, the first of which was mass migration to the suburbs. Then came the baby boomers. Also a tendency to purchase durables such as houses, cars, and electrical appliances. A communist scare also was a factor, which several prominent actors found themselves on the dubious list. Most importantly, the advent of television and the proliferation of big-time sports all contributed to this heavy competition that Hollywood was not accustomed to. The industry responds. Cuckoo describes how Hollywood tackles the problem. First, they reduced the number of films produced, and they gave up ownership in the cinema outlets. The strategy involved was to create a high-quality product that would clearly separate itself from the emerging competition. Cuckoo revealed to us that from this point, Hollywood began to develop and produce these big, expensive productions, described as spectacular, multi-epic productions. Productions such as The Ten Commandments, The Bridge Over the River Kwai, Ben-Hur, Lawrence of Arabia, Cleopatra, Gone with the Wind, the majors. Along came Spielberg, and in came a new day. 20 plus years have passed, and Hollywood was operating in this fashion. The 28-year-old Steven Spielberg, and his new film, Jaws, changed Hollywood forever, and the summer blockbuster was born. The results? Lew Wasserman, who is the executive in charge of Universal Studios, earned the title Father of the Blockbuster genre. Jaws grossed $100 million, unheard of for that time. Wasserman developed a two-pronged advertising saturation strategy, which was utilized in television ads and in theater outlets. Dominantly purchased prime time space, especially on the eve of opening weekend. The industry has never been the same. Spielberg continued to make large-scale movies such as E.T., Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park. Colleagues like George Lucas cemented the blockbuster genre's dominance with the Star Wars franchise. We see, when we fast forward to present day, some of the old and some of the new. Spielberg is still going strong with some 145 production credits, while George Lucas is still around. James Cameron is going to the outer limits with Avatar, and Christopher Nolan is the dominant newcomer. Sarah Miles tunes in again. Miles writes that Christopher Nolan's rise to prominence brings with it the accusation that the film type tentpole movies have become increasingly dark and depressing in recent years. She continues to admit that these movies are box office behemoths, but are steeped in gritty bloodiness, and concludes her article by firmly stating, "Not all tentpole movies are soul-destroying, some are positively uplifting." Her short list of positive uplifting: E.T., Men in Black, and Ghostbusters. Miles also identifies some standard themes these positive uplifting films have in common: triumph over adversity, passion, winning against faceless bureaucracy, doing the right thing. She also points out some other necessary qualities: a touching performance, stirring music, and the perfect amount of humor. Marco Cuckoo writes, "Narrative construction of blockbusters is usually simple, not highly innovative or revolutionary in content, and apolitical." He also shares an interesting quote from an unknown journalist who wrote, "There is nothing American about a boat crashing into an iceberg or asteroids that threaten to obliterate human life." He continues to say that the blockbuster genre has evolved into a design for the global market and is usually science fiction, action, or adventure. Focusing here on the universal theme and the fact that it takes the cultural specificity out of the storyline, which allows it to be seen in Russia, China, or anywhere in the world, because people basically have the same universal truths. Meanwhile, there's another conversation happening in Hollywood. The ubiquitous Damon Lindelof is interviewed by columnist Scott Brown. Lindelof is quoted as saying, "Once you spend $1 million on a movie, you have to save the world." He then goes on to basically describe the process of writing the formulaic screenplay as a form of slavery. So what does Spielberg think of all this? he thinks the industry will implode. He is quoted as asserting an industry that only makes mega movies will die on its gigantism. Having a discussion on big movie narrative without including John Truby, I feel would be irresponsible. His books, The Anatomy of Story, and his lectures and seminars are widely read and attended. Let's evaluate his thoughts on the subject. He writes, "A great story is organic, not a machine, but a living body that develops. It must feel like a single thing that grows and builds to a climax." Take note, there's a huge contrast in Kuko's research and Truby's insights. Kuko refers to the blockbuster as a commercial business and not art. Truby speaks of these films as meticulous, well thought out masterpieces, deeply structured and based upon some dynamic character journey and his or her desire lines, plans, and principled designs. Two agreements, Kuko the scholar and Truby the practitioner. Most blockbusters fall into science fiction, action, and adventure, and stories must be high concept and universal in theme to attract the global audience. J. Gideon Sarantino, heavily influenced by Truby, I thoroughly enjoyed reading his articles. Sarantino says, place the hero in early and constant danger. Keep the pressure on throughout the movie. Follow the desire line path. Pressure, pressure, pressure. There's a number of ways to intensify attack on the hero. Increase the number of opponents, which will create a machine gun effect, blasting away at the hero. I love it. J. Gideon Sarantino continued, take us into fantastical world, real and detailed. He is quoted as saying, once the audience is hooked, the story takes the audience into a world realized in magnificent detail they can experience in real life or any other medium, Straight dramas rarely are blockbusters because even though they give the real and sometimes touching moments and characters, they don't have the fantastical worlds. They don't have what Kuko calls the promise of spectacularity. The 6 men that led the way to greatness in the blockbuster industry. These 6 men made enormous amounts of money for themselves in the studio. George Lucas falls in 6th place with $1.74 billion. Ron Howard, 5th place with $1.80 billion. Michael Bay, 4th place with $1.89 billion. James Cameron, 3rd place with $1.97 billion. Robert Zemeckis, 2nd place with 2.0, and the great Steven Spielberg, 1st place with 4.15 billion. Folks, these numbers will change with each movie that these mega directors finish. Conclusion. Will this tentpole method of doing business continue to dominate Hollywood life? Will the dark and depressing themes continue its run? Will the uplifting and positive take over? Is Spielberg's prediction a prophecy? I like Truby. Blockbusters are about universal themes and high concept, fantastical worlds, and the promise of spectacularity. Thank you.